Some secrets don't stay buried because the truth disappears. They stay buried because someone is terrified of what the truth will destroy. This is Ethan's confession.
For 15 years, Claire had wanted our anniversary to be a family event. She loved having people around. Her family, my family, friends we'd known for years. She liked the noise, the stories, the photographs, the arguments over who was going to pay the bill. So when she told me she wanted our 15th anniversary to be just the two of us, I was surprised. I actually asked her if she was sure. She said she was. She had already chosen the restaurant. She had already made the reservation. And when I suggested inviting her family, she immediately said no. At the time, I thought she simply wanted something quiet. Looking back, I realized she wasn't planning a celebration. She was preparing for a confession. We sat across from each other that evening, and for the first time in 15 years, I felt like there was something Claire was afraid of. She smiled as she raised her glass. Then she looked directly at me and said, "Before we celebrate, there's something I've hidden from you for 15 years." I asked Claire why she had never told me about Mara. She looked down at the table. I knew the name, but I had never really known the woman behind it. Mara was Claire's stepsister, the one her family rarely talked about, the one who had struggled with addiction, the one who had gone to prison after Daniel died. I had always assumed there was nothing more to the story. That night, I realized how wrong I'd been. I asked Claire how much money she'd been sending Mara. She didn't answer. I asked again. Finally, she looked at me and said, "Enough to keep her alive." That answer bothered me. I asked what she meant. Claire reached into her handbag and placed a small envelope on the table. I asked if Mara was blackmailing her. Claire shook her head. I asked if Mara knew about the payments. She said yes. Then I asked the question that had been sitting in my head since Claire said her name. Why would you spend 15 years helping the woman who killed your brother? Claire's face changed. She didn't look angry. She didn't look afraid. She looked exhausted. Then she said, "Mara didn't kill Daniel." For a few seconds, I couldn't speak. I looked at Claire and waited for her to explain what she meant. She didn't. I asked her again, if Mara didn't kill Daniel, then who did? Claire looked down at the table. Then she said, "I was driving." I remember staring at her because my mind refused to make sense of those three words. I was driving, not Mara. Claire, my wife, the woman who had spent 15 years visiting the woman everyone believed had killed her brother. I asked her why Mara had taken the blame. Claire didn't answer immediately. She told me she had been drinking that night. Daniel had been in the car. Mara had been there too. Then Claire looked at me and said something I'll never forget. I was afraid of losing everything. I asked her what she meant. She said she was afraid of prison, afraid of losing her family, afraid of becoming the person everyone would hate. And Mara was already the person everyone blamed for everything. So Claire made a choice. She let Mara take the blame. 16 years earlier, Claire, Daniel and Mara had been together at a family gathering. It wasn't an unusual night. Daniel had been drinking. Claire had been drinking too, although not enough for anyone at the party to think she was incapable of driving. At least, that's what Claire told herself. She insisted she was fine. Daniel argued with her. He told her to leave the car and let someone else drive. Claire refused. Mara sat quietly in the back seat. She had already been drinking earlier that evening, but she wasn't driving. According to Claire, the argument continued all the way down the road. Daniel kept telling her to slow down. Claire kept insisting she was fine. Then, on a dark stretch of road, Claire lost control. The car left the road. Everything happened in seconds. Metal twisted, glass shattered, and when the car finally stopped moving, Daniel was dead. Claire was alive. Mara was alive. And in the silence that followed, Claire realized something that would change 3 families forever. She had been driving, She was the one responsible. And if the police discovered the truth, she could go to prison for killing her own brother. Claire told me that after the crash, she was barely able to think. Daniel was dead. She was injured. Mara was sitting beside the wreckage, shaking and covered in blood. Then Claire heard the sirens, and she understood that the police were coming. Claire knew she had been drinking. She knew she had been driving too fast, and she knew that if the police discovered the truth, her life would be over. Mara looked at her and asked what they were going to do. Claire didn't answer. Then Mara asked if Claire was going to tell the police the truth. Claire said no. Mara stared at her, and that's when Claire made the decision she would spend the next 15 years trying to live with. She told Mara that if the police found out about her addiction, they would never believe anything she said. Mara told her that she hadn't been driving. Claire knew that, but Claire also knew something else. Mara had already been in trouble before. She had relapsed. She was terrified of going back to prison, and Claire used that fear against her. She told Mara that if she took responsibility for the accident, Claire would make sure she had the best lawyer money could buy. She promised to pay for treatment. She promised to look after her. And then Claire said the one thing Mara was most afraid of hearing: if you don't take the blame, they will find out everything. Mara asked her what everything meant. Claire didn't answer. She didn't have to. Mara already knew. She had been fighting her addiction for years. She knew exactly what another conviction could mean. So when the police arrived, Mara told them she had been driving, and Claire let her. Mara's statement became the story everyone wanted to believe. She had been drinking. She had a history of addiction. She had already been in trouble before, and Daniel was dead. Nobody wanted to believe that Claire, the daughter everyone trusted, could have been responsible. So when Mara said she had been driving, people accepted it. Claire never corrected them. She never told her parents the truth. She never told the police, and she never told me. Mara pleaded guilty. She was sentenced to prison. And just like that, the woman who had been treated like the problem in the family became the person everyone blamed for Daniel's death. Claire told me that the day Mara was taken away was the day she realized what she had really done. She had saved herself, but she had handed another woman her life. For the first few weeks, Claire said she couldn't sleep. She couldn't eat. She kept thinking about telling the truth. But every time she imagined confessing, she imagined her parents looking at her the way they had looked at Mara. So she stayed silent. And then something happened that made the silence permanent. Claire met me. Claire met me about a year after Daniel died. By then, Mara was already in prison. Claire had stopped talking about what happened. At least, that's what I thought. We met in a way that neither of us would have remembered as important at the time. It was an ordinary afternoon. I had gone into a small cafe after a meeting. Claire was sitting near the window with a book and a cup of coffee. We started talking because the cafe was crowded and the only empty chair was at her table. I apologized for interrupting her. She smiled and said I was welcome to sit. We talked for almost 2 hours. Nothing dramatic happened. She didn't tell me about Daniel. She didn't tell me about Mara. She didn't tell me that she was carrying a secret that could have destroyed everything she was trying to build. I just met a woman I liked, and Claire met a man who made her feel normal again. That's what she told me years later. She said that when she was with me, she could forget for a few hours. She could laugh without feeling guilty. She could imagine that the worst thing she'd ever done belonged to another version of herself. And I think that's where her second mistake began. Her first mistake was letting Mara take the blame. Her second was believing that if she built a good enough life, she could leave the past behind. Claire and I started seeing each other regularly after that first afternoon in the cafe. I remember how easy it felt. There was no performance with her, no trying to impress each other. We could sit in silence and still feel comfortable. Within a few months, I knew I was falling in love with her. But there were moments when I could tell something inside her was still somewhere else. Sometimes I'd ask what she was thinking, and she'd say nothing. Sometimes we'd pass a police car, and I'd notice her expression change. Once, I asked her if she was afraid of something. She smiled and told me she'd made mistakes when she was younger. I asked what kind of mistakes. She said the kind you learn from. I believed her, and that's the part that still hurts when I think about it. She wasn't lying about everything. She really did love me. She really did want a different life. But there was one part of her old life she had never escaped. Mara was still in prison. Daniel was still dead. And Claire was still the only person alive who knew exactly what had happened that night. A few months before Claire and I got married, she told me she needed to visit someone. She wouldn't tell me who. I didn't push her. I trusted her. Looking back, that trust was exactly what allowed the secret to survive. Claire drove to the prison alone. She had been there before. She knew the procedure. She knew where to wait. She knew which door to walk through. And she knew exactly who would be sitting on the other side of the glass. Mara, Claire told me years later that their first conversation was almost unbearable. Mara didn't ask about money. She didn't ask about the family. She didn't ask about Daniel. She asked Claire one question. Are you going to tell them? Claire knew exactly what she meant. Are you going to tell them that I wasn't driving? Claire said she wasn't ready. Mara looked at her for a long time. Then she said something Claire would remember for the rest of her life. You weren't ready when you let me take the blame either. Claire came home from that visit and didn't tell me what had happened. A few weeks later, I asked her to marry me. She said yes. We got married quietly. There were flowers, there were photographs, there were people smiling at us and telling us how lucky we were. And somewhere in the middle of all that happiness was a woman sitting in prison for something she hadn't done. I didn't know any of that. I thought I was marrying a woman who had survived a terrible loss. I didn't know I was marrying a woman who had caused part of it. After our wedding, Claire started sending money to Mara every month. At first, it was a small amount. Then, it became more regular. Claire told herself it was repayment. She told herself Mara needed help rebuilding her life. She told herself that one day she would tell me. But every month that passed made the truth harder to say, because every month she stayed silent, she had more to lose. Our marriage became real. We built routines. We traveled. We celebrated birthdays. We argued over stupid things. We made up. We grew older together. And for 15 years, Claire carried the same secret into every room we entered. She never stopped visiting Mara. She never stopped sending money. And she never stopped telling herself that she would confess one day. But something changed inside Mara. Prison hadn't broken her the way everyone expected it to. She got sober. She completed every recovery program available to her. She started helping other women who were fighting addiction. She studied. She worked. She became someone her younger self would barely have recognized. But outside those prison walls, almost nobody knew. Claire knew, and that became another burden Claire carried. Because every time she looked at Mara, she saw the woman she had sacrificed to save herself. Then, about a year ago, Mara became seriously ill. Claire didn't tell me. She simply started making more frequent visits. She came home later. She became quieter, and for the first time in our marriage, I started noticing the pattern. The unexplained trips, the payments, the phone calls she took in another room. I asked her if something was wrong. She said she was tired. I believed her, until Mara finally told Claire that she was going to clear her name. Not someday, not when she felt ready. Now, Mara had spent 15 years being remembered as the woman who killed Daniel. She had spent 15 years sober, 15 years carrying a conviction for something she hadn't done. And now she knew she might not have much time left. She told Claire she had prepared a statement. She told her that if Claire didn't tell the truth, she would. Claire asked her what she wanted. Mara said, "I don't want your money. I don't want your family. I don't want revenge. I just wanted to die with my name back." Claire came home that night and sat alone in the dark, because for 15 years, She had been afraid of losing everything if she told the truth. Now, she was finally realizing that keeping the truth had already cost her everything that mattered. And that's when she decided to tell me. Not tomorrow, not someday. On our 15th wedding anniversary, when Claire finished telling me about Mara, I thought the worst part was over. I was wrong. I asked her how long she had been sending money. She said 15 years. I asked how much. She told me. The amount wasn't what shocked me. It was the consistency. Every month, for 15 years. Even after we had bills. Even after we had difficult years. Even when money was tight. Claire had never missed a payment. I asked where the money went. She told me it went through a solicitor's account and eventually reached Mara. I asked why she had never told me. Claire said because if she told me, she would have to tell me everything. I looked at her and realized something that frightened me. She hadn't been keeping one secret from me. She had been protecting an entire life, built on top of one secret. Then I asked her the question I should have asked years earlier. Where is Mara now? Claire looked at me. She's still in prison. And that's when I understood why. Claire had wanted this anniversary to be just the two of us. She knew this was the last night she could tell me before someone else did. The next morning, Claire asked me if I wanted to meet Mara. I almost said no. Part of me wanted to believe that if I never saw her, I could somehow keep my marriage separate from everything I had just learned. But another part of me needed to see the woman who had spent 15 years paying for my wife's decision. So I went. The prison visiting room was nothing like I had imagined. It wasn't dramatic. It was fluorescent lights, plastic chairs, and people sitting quietly across from one another. Mara was already waiting when I arrived. She stood when she saw me. And the first thing I noticed was how calm she looked. There was no anger on her face, no desperation, no attempt to make me feel sorry for her. She simply looked tired. I introduced myself, even though she already knew who I was. She smiled slightly and said, "I know who you are." I sat down. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Then I asked her the question that had been sitting inside me all night. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" Mara looked at me and said, "I did. Nobody believed me." She told me she had tried to tell the truth more than once. But by then, the family had already decided who she was. An addict, a troublemaker, the woman who had killed Daniel. Every time she spoke, people heard the person they already believed her to be. Then she said something I wasn't prepared for. Claire was the only person who knew I was telling the truth. I asked her why she had accepted Claire's money for so many years. Mara shook her head. I stopped needing her money a long time ago. I asked what she meant. She told me she had been sober for years. She had completed every recovery program available to her. She had helped other women get clean. She had studied. She had changed. But none of that mattered outside those walls. Because as far as the world was concerned, she was still the woman who killed Daniel. Then Mara looked directly at me and said, "I don't want Claire punished because I hate her. I want the truth because I have spent 15 years being punished for something I didn't do." I asked Mara what would happen if Claire confessed. She said she didn't know. Maybe the conviction would be overturned. Maybe it wouldn't. Maybe Claire would go to prison. Maybe she wouldn't. She wasn't interested in predicting the consequences anymore. She simply wanted the truth on record. Then she told me why she had finally decided to speak. Her illness had gotten worse. She didn't know how much time she had left, and she refused to die with the same name she had carried into prison. I asked her what she wanted from me. She said, "Nothing." Then she smiled sadly. "I just want one person outside this prison to know who I really am." I told her I believed her. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she said, "Don't believe me because Claire is your wife? Believe me because the truth doesn't need you to love me. It only needs you to stop protecting the lie." When I left the prison, I knew what I had to do. I went home and asked Claire to tell me everything. Not the version she had told herself for 15 years. Everything. She told me about the drinking, the argument with Daniel, the crash. The moment she realized he was dead, the moment she realized Mara could take the blame, and the moment she chose herself, she told me about every prison visit, every payment, every lie, every time Mara had asked her to tell the truth, and every time Claire had found another reason not to. When she finished, I asked her one question. If Mara hadn't become sick, would you ever have told me? Claire didn't answer. She didn't need to. I already knew. I told Claire that I loved her, but I also told her that loving her didn't mean I could help her lie anymore. Claire cried, not because I was leaving, because for the first time in 15 years, there was nowhere left for her to hide. The next morning, Claire contacted Mara's lawyer. She gave a formal statement admitting that she had been driving. She admitted that Mara had not been responsible for Daniel's death, and she admitted that she had deliberately allowed Mara to take the blame. The story that had been told for 15 years finally began to fall apart. The truth did not fix everything. Mara's conviction had to be challenged. Claire had to face the consequences of her confession. Her family learned that the daughter they had trusted had been the person who lied to them. Some people hated her, some people refused to speak to her, and some people couldn't understand how she had lived with herself for so long. I couldn't either, but I also knew something they didn't. Claire hadn't stopped loving me during those 15 years. That was what made everything harder. She had loved me while hiding the worst things she had ever done, and I had loved her without knowing it. Our marriage didn't magically return to normal. I didn't wake up one morning and forget what happened. Trust doesn't work that way. But I stayed, not because Claire deserved to escape the consequences, and not because I could erase what she had done. I stayed because I eventually understood that forgiveness and protection are not the same thing. I could forgive Claire someday, but I would never again help her hide from the truth. A few weeks later, I visited Mara again. She looked weaker, but she was smiling. I asked her how she felt, knowing the truth was finally coming out. She looked at me and said, "Free." That was the first time I understood what she had been fighting for all those years. She hadn't wanted revenge. She hadn't wanted Claire's life. She had wanted her own name back, and Claire had spent 15 years trying to protect the life she built, only to discover that the life she was protecting could never truly be hers while another woman was carrying the blame for her mistake 15 years earlier. Claire had believed telling the truth would destroy everything. She was right. The truth did destroy the life she had built on top of the lie, but it also gave Mara something 15 years of money could never buy, her name back. And on the night of our 15th anniversary, I thought my wife was finally confessing because she was afraid of losing me. I eventually realized that wasn't the reason. She was confessing because she had finally understood something Mara had known for years. You can live with the secret, but you cannot build a life that makes the truth disappear.
Ethan thought the truth would destroy his marriage. Instead, it finally gave another woman her name back, because sometimes forgiveness can come later, but the truth cannot wait forever.